We talked about in the book of Romans justification. What does Paul say about justification? And help us to understand justification a little more. Sometimes that's confusing between religious denominations and even our own understanding.
Well, and it became a source of division at the time of Martin Luther. It was Martin Luther struggled with the experience of his own salvation. Apparently he was a scrupulous man, and he could never feel interiorly at peace. And when he prayed over Paul's letter to the Romans and his letter to the Galatians, he recognized what Paul was saying there. God is the one who saves. We're not the ones who save ourselves. And this took a burden off his shoulders. Now, he pushed that to the extent of suggesting that it's our faith, which is a gift of God, that makes salvation possible, and faith alone brings about salvation, whereas Paul focuses on even the act of faith, accepting it, and then also the need to live in so many ways. He draws out the ethical teaching, the need to live doing deeds that flow from our faith. In fact, his whole moral teaching is a teaching that tries to say, if we are now incorporated into Christ's own body, this is the way in which we should live. And it is the grace made possible by this incorporation that makes possible a kind of life that the world often will consider to be impossible to live.
So he's asking us to live in the spirit and in the flesh while we are in the flesh, and faith being expressed through our works.
All right. When he uses the term flesh, however, he's talking about living the way of the world.
Yes. Okay.
When he uses the word body, he's referring to our body and soul, and he wants both body and soul to be living in the Spirit, open to God's Spirit, with the indwelling of God's Spirit, making possible our living a kind of life that is open and responsive to the Spirit and is opposed to following the way of the flesh of the world.
I'll probably put you on the spot here, but let's suppose that St. Paul is sitting here with us in a discussion, and we were to say, what are 3 or 4 of the key points that you would like to make, St. Paul, to the people of our generation? What do you think he would say?
Well, you are putting me on the spot. I suspect that the first thing that he would say is the human person is sacred, comes from God, is destined to go back to God, and in human life, both in personal morality and in social morality, it is recognizing the sacredness of the human person incorporated in the life of Christ that makes possible the living of a way of life that is different from the way of the world. And I think he would focus on that. All of his social morality, all of his sexual morality flows from that basic principle.
He recognized that he had the temptations, but he recognized his gift and his ultimate...
In Romans, that 5th to the 8th chapters, he describes very vividly the struggle between living the life of the Spirit and the life of the flesh. And in the 8th chapter, how is it possible? Only by the grace of being incorporated in the life of Jesus Christ, our baptism.